I'm joined now by former NASA astronaut Leroy Chiao. He has been on 4 space missions and most recently served as the commander of the International Space Station. Leroy, pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us. What the Chinese did today, this is a first. But why is it that China did this, that China has become the first to land the spacecraft on the far side of the moon?
Well, what we've seen is a steady progression, a long-range plan, very detailed goals, and China is marching down that road ever since they first launched Yang Wei in 2003, establishing themselves as only the 3rd country able to launch astronauts into space, now only one of 2. And now they have landed on the far side of the moon with a rover. That's a first. That's never been done. They showed a high level of sophistication in first launching a satellite, a communications relay satellite, into what's called a halo orbit so that they could communicate with that rover. And what they're demonstrating is their technological and operational prowess. And as you were saying in your segment, they have big plans to have their own international space station and also to land their astronauts on the moon.
Yeah, and so that now that China has a rover on the far side of the moon, will the next human to walk the moon be speaking Mandarin? Will be from China?
Well, that's certainly maybe more than a possibility, maybe even a probability. I think the wild card in there is, will some of these commercial companies stop by the moon before they want to go to Mars? And so there's an interesting competition that's gearing up, not only necessarily between nations, but also between some of these commercial companies that we're seeing.
Yeah, and bringing it back to China, why is China in space? What are China's plans in space?
Well, the first and foremost reason any country has a space program and especially gets into the human spaceflight program is for national prestige and to show their technological prowess. And China is doing both of those things. You've seen especially their human spaceflight program is very measured. They're not launching very often. They're very deliberate. They have specific goals that build upon the previous mission on each one. And same with their unmanned program. They've gone farther with their Chang-e series. This is the 4th one, and this is the most ambitious one. Each one has done more and more. And so what you're seeing is a high level of sophistication and very deliberate plan.
Yeah, the Chang-e 4, the current mission, the rover that's on the far side of the moon, you call it the most ambitious one just yet. What kind of experiments will it conduct on the surface of the moon, and what can humankind learn from it?
Well, this is going to be doing some things that have never been done before. It has a ground-penetrating radar. They'll be mapping the structure underneath the surface of the moon because the moon is shielding the spacecraft from all the radio emissions from the Earth. They'll be able to do some detailed studies of some, measuring the radio waves and radio astronomy and make some observations that have never been done before. And they've got some other experiments too. For example, they're going to be demonstrating or seeing if they can grow plants in the 1/6 gravity of the lunar surface.
And this year, of course, this year will be the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing. Today, China has landed a rover on the far side of the moon. This is historic. But why did it take so long?
Well, of course, China, was starting from a point much behind the United States and Russia. Russia, of course, launched Yuri Gagarin into space first, and then the United States followed with Alan Shepard a few weeks later, back in 1961. And so if you fast forward to China launching Yang Wei in 2003, that's a pretty big gap, right? And so it took that long for China really to kind of bring their infrastructure up to the point where they were able to do the things that we were doing. Now, having said that, they're not doing it with 60s technologies. Their technologies are up to date. From what I've seen, they have a high degree of sophistication, so nobody should make the mistake of thinking that they're just recreating what we've done in the 60s and 70s. That's simply not true.
Yeah, but this is such an incredible space milestone achieved by the Chinese today, just days after NASA's New Horizons spacecraft sent back those incredible photographs. What a week for space. Leroy Chiao, thank you for joining us here in the program, and take care.
My pleasure.